I was getting ready to go back to Spain. I was living over in Spain. So I came down here to see my people. And I think they needed me to stay around. So I stayed on here. It's been all right, though. Nashville's always been all right with me.
In what sense?
Well, this is where I was born, and so I know a lot of people around here. So it was easy for me to readjust because I had been.
I mean, and as far as hometowns go, as a musician, like Nashville seems to be a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, it is. Although I didn't know what it was going to be like when I got back here, but it's kind of when I left, it was okay, but I had to go up north to try to do what I could do.
Where did you move up north?
New York.
You were in the city for a while.
Yeah, quite a while.
How long about?
Well, I got there in 1962, and I left in 95.
It was the music business that brought you out here?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was pretty popular around here in Nashville, but I know it wasn't going far. Just staying here, I had to get out of here to go. And at the same time, I had already met a lot of bigger acts, and I met James here, James Brown, and so he told me if I get to New York, look him up, and I did.
Brought you on tour for a bit there.
Yeah, I went on tour with him right away. A couple of years, and then I just went with other acts. Like I went with Jackie Wilson right after that, and then Etta James, and just different acts.
That's a pretty incredible string of musicians to be singing along with.
Yeah, it was the best for me. I mean, I learned a lot. Learned how to do real shows and the whole 9 yards about the music business, really.
Specifically, what did you learn from the hardest working man in show business?
Really, I learned how to do a show. I had been doing shows down here in Nashville, but it was mainly in one club. And every once in a while I'd go out somewhere, but it's a whole different thing when you get out there on tour. You really have to know the ins and outs and really how to handle the stage too. Cause that's my thing was really that much, how to handle the stage and anything else I could find to handle. But that was the main thing, just stage.
When you say handle the stage, what do you mean by that?
Well, how to do an act, how to put an act together, how to perform it, and to the best possible thing that you can do on stage. It's a lot of little tricks and controlling the crowd and identifying what's going on in the crowd. But when I started with James, I was only doing like maybe 3 songs. So I had to really put it all together within those 3 songs. And I couldn't go over that. So I tried it a couple of times, but it didn't work.
How so?
Well, James would fire you, he would fine you. He would fine you first, and then if it happened again, he would fire you. He fired me a couple of times, and he just left me in town and then called me back and sent for me, That's his way. That was his way, and I understood it.
He would kick you off the tour bus and you'd just be left in whatever town you played in last?
Yep.
I was watching you talk about him in an interview before, and he had a hand signal that he gave you.
Yeah. Yeah, the $5 hand. This right here. Every time he did that, was $5. And so you can't, I wasn't making all that much money anyhow, so I think I was only making about $25, $30 a night.
You only had, 5, 6 opportunities
to
get one of those, and you were out of money.
I owe him.
What was he finding you for specifically?
Well, like going overtime, or
Mhm.
I tried to, like, I used to try to make a medley out of a few songs, and I would go overtime. And sometimes it wasn't even that. It was he'd be standing on the side of the stage when I was out there, and, so he would signal sometime for me to get off. You know, so I tried to act like I didn't see him.
I don't want to say difficult, but a tricky position to be in where obviously you want to play the best that you can inside of those
Yeah,
three songs, but he's not that he would ever get upstaged, but it sounds like he was a bit worried of getting upstaged.
yeah, they are all of a lot of the top acts are like that. You're the opening act, and that's what you're supposed to do. Just kind of warm it up for them, you know. And after a while, I understood that, so I got myself together, and then I finally just, uh, well, every town I would go in, I'd see other musicians, and I finally got names of all these musicians, and I call them, put my own thing together when I left James.
What was that process like? I mean, I assume to a certain extent, obviously you moved to New York, you've got some of those connections, your name's getting out there because you're playing with these bigger acts, but was it difficult to get momentum with your own act?
Well, it wasn't so hard. What I did was I called the musicians, and the ones that I got a whole band together, and I had a job that I could do in Columbus, Ohio. While I was putting the band together, and I still could work at this club, and so it worked out fine. I stayed there a couple of years putting the Sidewinders together.
Columbus was the home base for the group?
Yeah, at that time, yeah, because I had already did a thing in New York at Smalls Paradise, and I got fired there too because I was doing sort of like a James Brown act and falling out and all that stuff, and they didn't understand what was going on. They thought I had hurt myself, and they took me downstairs on the shoulder and they said, "You all right?" I said, "Man, put me down. That's part of the show." He said, "Well, it ain't a part of the show in here no more." So it's just, things that happen to you out there, and you just learn to deal with it. I still got a chance to come back to Smalls because King Curtis was playing there, and King and he was there when I first got there, and he told me to go, get your act together and come on back. And when I called him when I got the Sidewinders together, and we were working in Ohio, and I called him, told him I'm ready to come back to New York. And he got me a gig back at Smalls.
That's interesting. So in a way, Columbus was perfect because you were away from that scene for a little while, and you were able to sort of workshop things in a way that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in a bigger city like New York.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't. I don't think you'd be able to do that in New York. Everybody's all the musicians are trying to work with somebody else, trying to get work, not put a band together. They just want to go to work, But I knew what it took for a band, and I knew what type of music was going to be good for me to do, and so I called all these musicians, and they was gung ho about coming there. I sent them tickets, and they came to Ohio, and I had a place for them to make some little money too while we was putting it all together.
There had to have been a lot of trust in you for these musicians to actually get on a plane and fly out to Ohio to be in your band.
I guess so. I guess so. But it was tough times back in those days, and all musicians was trying to find something to do. And I was talking to them when I was out on the road, talking to musicians and talking about putting a band together. And they had seen me on stage, and they figured, well, he's working with James. He'll do all right, which, so I I was lucky enough to have that place to work in Columbus. I had talked to the owner there because he had seen me before. And he said, well, I told him I was putting the band together and I need a place to rehearse. And I rehearsed right there in the club every day. And it put a good band together. I had Side Ones was a very good band. You know.
It sounds like specifically coming off of that tour with James, that there was maybe a little bit of imitation happening on your end, that you maybe copped a little bit of his act. Is that fair to say?
Of course. Yeah. I had to put that in there because he's already been proven. So I figured that was a good part of the act I could put in there. Plus I had my little act when before I left Nashville. I used to do all that stuff before I left Nashville. I had worked in this club in Nashville for a few years, and it had a big audience every night. So I had an act, but I put some of James in there too, and they do a little bit of Hep it, so.
Very famously had an extremely athletic act. Is that part of what you're talking about there? Is some of the dance moves?
Yeah. Well, I was a very good dancer. And I knew all those. I could do all that stuff. I could do all the mic tricks. And I could do it before James was doing it. Because Joe Tex taught me how to do it back in the day. And so I was doing all that mic stuff and kicking the mic around and turning flips and everything else.
Could you do the splits back then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could do it all. Yeah.
Obviously, I talk to artists all the time for the show, and it's a pretty, I think most, if not all, artists go through a similar trajectory where you start by imitating the things that you love, and then you start to kind of develop your own identity from there.
Yeah, finding an identity. And as it went on, I still moved around a lot on stage, even when I cut that James Brown stuff out, because that was gruesome stuff. That was really hard. It wasn't easy.
It was tough on your body.
Yeah. But, all through the years, even before I got up to an age I can't do all that stuff anymore, I still could do a lot of it. But not much, not as much as I was when I was younger, And I didn't think I had to do all that anyhow after a while. I just used my voice mainly.
In a certain way, when you're not using dancing,
the tricks
then
and
your voice has to become stronger, right? I mean, because you're relying on that entirely.
Well, my voice was always strong. The thing is, you have to cultivate your voice and pick different kinds of material to present a rounded show instead of just hollering and screaming all night. So that's what I did. I started picking out songs that would be sort of for me just to stand up there and sing, and people enjoyed the range that I have, and so that's what happened.
What makes a good Wigg song?
Well, I kind of like ballads. I like ballads, and I like those 3/4 timing and 12/8 timing, and I like those kind of songs, but I'm not so much of I can do the blues, but I'm not what you call a blues singer. That's what happened in Nashville. The first record I put out was a blues song, and I can sing the blues. I can sing that, but that's the reason why I left Nashville. One of the reasons why I left Nashville, I didn't want to become a blues singer. I wanted to be more of a R&B soul singer. So I went everybody was going to Motown and everything.
Going out to Detroit.
Yeah, but I didn't think that was so much my thing. I got put on with Chess Records in Chicago, so I thought that was my style, more of my style. Yeah, so I wished I had went to Motown.
When I think of Chess, I think a bit of the blues. I mean, there's
Yeah,
definitely
it's
a lot of
blues.
that in there.
It's a lot of blues, but I think when I was with Chess, they put me into what I was looking for. It's more of an R&B kind of thing, you know. Because Leonard and Field Chess, they were pretty up on the music stuff, you know. And then they could hear you sing and tell what you could do, you know. So I went there with me and J.C. Davis, who was a band leader. He was a band leader with James too. Yeah. And so we hooked up after that and when I went to Chess with him and with J.C. Davis and Little Charles. And so we did a couple of things with Chess and it didn't pan out too well either. So,
if the goal was to do R&B or soul music, how does your first record end up being the blues?
because I had there was a guy down here named Ted Jarrett who wrote songs and produced songs for Gene Allison. You know, remember Gene Allison? You Can Make It If You Try.
Oh, sure.
And Earl Gaines and all the acts he had was blues acts. So and I was a young kid. I was only I think I was about 16 or 17. You know, when he first recorded me. So, but I tried. I mean, I did the song. It was bluesy, all right. But to me, I wanted to do something else. Yeah, I didn't want to do that.
As a singer, how is the blues different than doing a soul record or an R&B record?
Well, the blues is a little bit more gut bucket kind of stuff. You know, like I mean, I was more into I had met Lil Willie John, and he used to come to the club all the time and perform. It had a different thing to it. It was just not only blues. He sung a lot of jazz standards and stuff. Fell into that a little while, and because he could sing all kinds of stuff, but he had this blues overtones to his voice, and but I figured I could get into that bag a little bit and add my own kind of thing to it, you know, instead of just singing blues. I mean, I wished I had a big hit like You Could Make It If You Try, but
Sure.
I mean, the guy Ted Jarrett, he wrote a lot of hits for a lot of the people around here in Nashville. But I was a young kid, man. I was only about 16 when he recorded me. Yeah. And I had been singing. I had a singing group when I first started off, called the Bel Airs. And we was singing the doo-wop kind of things.
Doo-wop, yeah.
Yeah. So, we had different guys that could sing different stuff. I was the lead singer, and then I had another lead singer that was doing more like Johnny Mathis. He even looked like Johnny Mathis. So we had well-rounded kind of a group. But after a while, being in a group it's a difficult thing. You know, there's always arguments and this and that, disagreements about everything. So I just cut that loose and went on my own.
I didn't realize how young you were when you started.
Oh, yeah. I had been singing around and kicking around. I always did it. Even when I was 6, 7 years old, I always would go down and sing a little bit if I could find any place on the street or anywhere. I always did it. And so I knew I wanted to be I knew I wanted to be a singer. Even though when I was in high school and, I was, my homeroom was auto mechanics and I was learning how to do that. And I got a job when I got out of school and shit, I said, no. I mean, I got up under the car and the oil got in my face. I left the job that day.
The worst night with James Brown is nowhere near as bad as being under that car.
Oh, no. I could take James stuff anytime. No, but, and mainly, like I said from the beginning, I was out with James. It was very important for me to learn how to do shows, and, what it was all about, I was still only about 20 years old.
I talked to a lot of artists who are around your age and are from, the general area from the South. And a lot of them came up through the church, but it sounds like that wasn't really part of your experience in the same way.
But I did church. I did the church thing too, but, not as extended like a lot of other people. Most people, you're right. Most singers around there come up through the church. Well, I sang in the church too, but I don't know. Something about when I was out there singing with a gospel group, I found there was more of stuff going on out there with gospel singers than it was with,
You mean in terms of like what they're doing when they're not on stage?
No, I mean, the socializing and all that kind of stuff, I mean, and whoa, what was
The stuff that you have to go to confession for.
Yeah, you're right. I've been there a couple of times.
At what point did you get the idea that this was something that, I mean, obviously, you were being pragmatic or realistic in that you also learned how to fix cars, but when did it become clear to you that you could actually do this professionally?
Well, it really came to me when I was singing with the singing group because, I was what they called, brought the house down and I was singing James Brown stuff then. Like, please, please, please. I was doing that. That was my one that I got the house with. And, and then a lot of those fast songs, I would do a lot of dancing and stuff. But, it always had a knack about how to get over to the audience. For some reason or other, I don't know. I guess it was the church.
People talk a lot about the church, but, that's a captive audience. But if you're actually going out, it sounds like you were going out even like on the street, like that is a hard group of people to win over.
Oh, yeah. But, when you're a young guy and they see you out there doing something, if you do it pretty well, you can get over to them, I didn't do that long. They had a couple of movie theaters around in Nashville where I used to go down and they have talent shows and stuff like that. And I did that. But, it didn't take me long to realize I knew all the time I wanted to be a singer. Didn't take me long because I had to go to school, so I had to have something to do. So I thought auto mechanics was the thing to do, but it wasn't. No.
There have been points when you've had to have other jobs.
Oh yeah, I've done a lot of things. I've had, I had to live in New York. You have to hustle, and if there was a time in the 70s when disco was in, it was I kind of took a little break from singing. So I had to hustle, and I did, drive driving people back and forth uptown and downtown. You know, I had I had 2 vans when I was with the Sidewinders. So I just took my vans and me and my wife at that time, we just took people. We was making pretty good money just doing that. So I've done a lot of the odd jobs, and you know, you can't live in New York unless you got to hustle.
Oh, I know. I spent the last 20 years in Queens. I'm very familiar.
Yeah, I lived in Queens at one time.
Whereabouts?
I lived in Jamaica, Queens. As a matter of fact, I lived right down the street from James Brown.
Really?
Mm-hmm. My house was down on, he lived on, I forget the name of this avenue now, but he had like a little castle out there. And Count Basie lived right next door to him. Brooke Benton, you know. So I didn't, when I got the house out there, I didn't know all of that. It just happened to be there at the time. So, but me and James, we wasn't hooked up anymore. I was still working in Smalls Paradise. I worked in Smalls for a long time. Until I started traveling overseas and stuff like that. But I worked in Smalls about 10 years. And finally I got out and did some stuff, did like Las Vegas and started doing Puerto Rico and stuff like that. And it just moved on from there.
Count Basie must have been in his 70s at that point?
He was pretty old. I guess he was about the, yeah, because I was in the 70s. I had that house out there in like 71 or something like that. Yeah, Count was, because I had seen Count here in Nashville. He played here in Nashville it was a lot of jazz going on here in Nashville at one time, I seen Count Basie, Miles and Diz Gillespie and all of them. And they used to come by and see me because they would come to the clubs after they did their stuff, So I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of good musicians, and you just fall into the thing. You try to learn what you can, I was always trying to learn something. I wasn't just hanging around with them, just be hanging around. Yeah. So I used to play in Atlantic City. And it was like that. It was all of the big time jazz acts. And, they used to have this place, it was one club called the Club Harlem. And they used to have it was a horseshoe bar. And I think it was once a week, all the acts would come there. I mean, you had to be pretty good to be in there though. And I used to be sitting up there next to Miles and them, and, they'd always call me up and I'd do a song, So, I was in the in crowd, I guess.
What did you learn from Miles and the jazz guys?
Well, interesting. That's an interesting question. You do learn something. You learn really how to phrasing and that's what I like now. Like in the later years of my life, I'm pretty good at phrasing and voice control, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I used to hang out with Miles a lot in New York, but he was a strange guy, and he hardly ever said anything.
I've heard stories that maybe he wasn't the easiest guy to get along with.
No, he didn't mess around with too many people. Sometimes we would just be sitting up at the bar drinking, and he'd just sit there, But he didn't like to be around a lot of people for some reason. I don't know. You couldn't get into Miles's head, so yeah.
Probably wouldn't want to, even if you could.
Yeah, but and when I said, like I said, King Curtis was a big deal around New York. And so he was instrumental in helping me get my thing together. And he got me back into Smalls. And that was a big deal because Smalls is the biggest club in New York. I mean, for soul acts and jazz acts. Because when I got to New York, it was mainly only jazz trios and quartets. But after a while, I was the first act that went in there to start doing like R&B soul. And it caught on. I guess people was ready for it, you know.
I got the impression that, but there were things going on in like Harlem, for example, right?
Yeah, that's Harlem. That's what I'm talking about. Smalls is right down on 135th and 7th Avenue.
You talked a little bit about sort of the difficulty during that time period. What was it specifically that happened once disco really took over that made it maybe hard for you to make a living?
Well, I guess I could have kept going on, but I didn't want to. Disco had taken over, really. Everybody in bands was trying to change their thing over to disco. I wasn't going to do that, you know, so I just took a break. It just so happened that I came back in the I'm still doing shows around New York, but I had just taken a break because I had been doing that for a long time, and I had been in Smalls for a long time, and so when I took a break, me and the Sidewinders, we broke up at that point, you know. We broke up actually in 1972. So I put a little trio and stuff together, and then just doing smaller clubs, and just kept my hand in the business. So then I finally just, I don't know, I came on back to Nashville. I needed to get out of New York. New York was driving me crazy.
I just left myself. I get that.
Yeah. It's a hustle and bustle. You have to always hustle you have to make money in there. You can't just be there messing around. Yeah. So, I was ready to do, I had been over to Europe and I had lived in Spain and I lived in France for a while. So I had seen a different side of, the business. And, I was pretty popular over there in Europe. So I could go back over there and just put me something together and go on and keep on working. But, when I came home, when I came back to New York to I buried my second wife. And, because she was a keyboardist. And, she was a classical keyboardist, really. But we did like a duo. And sometimes we would add, a lot of Latin percussionists and stuff like that. And, we did all right. We did all right. We was making pretty good money down in Spain. I was working down at, what's that guy name? The guy that got the airline and Richard Branson.
Branson, yeah.
I was working at his hotel down in Mallorca. And it was doing okay. So, and just chilling out at the beach. So.
It must have been wild the first time you're halfway across the world. And, you know, It sounds like you were even bigger there than you were here. That must have been such a strange experience the first time.
Yeah, it was a strange experience. And you're right. And I got homesick, you know. So but I still I often came back to New York to get some more New York in me, didn't take it back to Spain. But when my wife got sick and had cancer and she passed away, I brought her back to New York, and then I was going to go back and still do my thing over in Spain, but I had to come see my people here, and my mother wasn't up to par either, so I just stayed around here. And start putting something together here again. And
I know you lost your wife recently, and I'm very sorry for that.
Thank you.
How do you keep going when something that big upends your life like that?
I don't know. I don't know how you keep going.
You don't think too much about it.
It's always on your mind, and that's the third wife. That's the third wife I had that passed away, and but it's a hard thing to go through, and I'm still going through it right now. But I still get out there on the stage. I know I got to do what I have to do, and I think my guys in the band, they help me out a lot. Help me kind of stay human because I find myself sitting around just staring out in space. But the guys keep in touch with me, and we go out and have dinners and stuff. And so I'm pulling myself together. I'm ready to come out here behind this new album. If things work out with this album, we're getting ready. We're getting it all ready and trying to put some sort of act together with that, But,
you're still ready? Your body's still ready to tour?
Yeah, I think I still can do it, I don't know. I haven't been on tour in a long time, so I don't know, but I think I know how to tour, So that's part of being in this business so long. You learn a lot of stuff, and you have to use it at sometimes, If I went on tour now, I know I wouldn't be out there partying and drinking and all that kind of stuff. I would just do my shows and try to get some sleep every night.
It sounds like this album, and it's your first in about 10 years, that this album was actually an important part of the grieving process for you.
Yeah. A bunch of the songs about had something to do with me and my wife, but you don't think about that. You just think about when you're writing a song or something. You just think about an experience you went through, and you're trying to straighten it out some kind of way. Like that one, A Matter of Trust, the ballad on the last one. I think it's the last one on the. That was we was having an argument, just regular arguments and stuff. So I sit in the bathroom, wrote the song. I told Charles that I was going to write something about trust. It's all you got to do is trust me. I ain't that crazy. But so it come out to be. I really like that song, And the first time I tried to sing it after she passed away, I broke down, because it was a hard thing. I shouldn't even tried it, but I did. And,
I mean, you write the song, you've got to perform it eventually.
I know, but I sang it right after she passed away. I did it that day at the club, and just broke me down, so I had to leave the stage in a hurry. But I'm better now, and I get out there every week, and I do my shows, and everything is coming together. Everything's coming together now.
Particularly those songs that are about your wife. What's your relationship like with them now, and how has that evolved?
I think I'm up to it now. We haven't really performed these songs since we first started doing them, and I think it'll be okay. I mean, it's going to be an experience. I have to just go and do it. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I might faint.
It's another James Brown move.
Yeah.
If I understand your history correctly, you actually you did some writing for Motown as well. When did you actually start writing your own songs?
Well, I off and on, I just kind of dibbled and dabbed. I never was considered myself a songwriter. I never, it was something in that biography that I never was a step writer. I got to get that out of there. I don't want anything in that going to come back on me, because I never was a step writer. I wrote songs. I wrote it with my second wife. I wrote a few songs and was shipped out to Motown, but I mean, I wasn't on the staff, so, and I never got any, I haven't heard any of them, so I guess they never did them. You know?
We talked a little bit early on about, and you kind of jokingly said, you wish you had a hit that was that big. And obviously, great songs stand the test of time, but it strikes me that there's always some luck involved. You can be the most talented person in the world, and there's still some luck involved in terms of getting that hit.
That's true. That's true. I mean, yes, I recorded a few albums and a few singles and everything else, but haven't been that lucky with them. And some of the songs I thought were pretty good, but like I was saying about, I think if I had went to Motown, I probably would have had a hit. But that's the choices you make, and you have to deal with that. I thought my thing was better off with Chess Records, but then you never know.
It's not healthy to dwell on that too much.
Yeah, I don't really. I just just keep on pushing on, and hope that this new album does something well. This new album is I really enjoyed doing it. It's good. I think it's a very good album, but if it stands the test of time, we'll see. Yeah. Nobody never knows.
What is it that keeps you pushing on?
I just love singing. I just love entertaining, and I really never ever did anything else.
You tried to fix a car once, and that didn't work out.
One day. That wasn't going to be. And I pretty much knew that all along. I knew when I was in school and doing auto mechanics, I just like messing around with cars, I guess. But when it came to fixing them, I didn't even think about all that, man. But when I got home, when I got that job, I left with about 2 hours. That oil fell in my face. And when my mother got home from work, I was sitting on the porch. She said, "What you doing home?" I said, "I quit." Yeah, it's just one of those things, I think I made the best move because I wasn't going to be no auto mechanic.
After all those years, though, even, and you've played some really big stages, even those nights when it's a sort of a small club in Nashville, you still get that same feeling?
I still do. I think that's what keeps me going. I still get the feeling of a strong feeling of being performing. Although I don't jump around and do all that stuff anymore, but I let my voice do the job now. I don't have to do all them splits and turning flips, and because I've been sitting on the stool for quite a little while now, and the people don't seem to bother the people at all. So far, we'll see.
I was looking, love was the